Good morning, everybody, wherever you might be, or good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you might be in this wonderful world of ours. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of In the Spotlight with me, your host, Seamus Corey, a wellbeing consultant and mental health practitioner. It's great to have you along this morning to sit down in this wonderful conversation I'm going to have with this amazing human being. But before that, let me just thank you, one and all, for your kind subscription and following in terms of my podcast. It's wonderful to see my channel is growing with subscription and with followers. So please, thank you for your support and share this channel with others so that others can hear and feel and understand what it means to be mentally and emotionally well. But also to listen into some amazing stories from amazing people that I have as guests on my podcast, both past, present, and still to come. Because you won't want to miss out on today's episode, my dear people. Sorry, I'm reverting back to an old form of behaviour. You won't want to miss out on this episode. I have the honour and pleasure of having a doctor on my podcast this morning. She is a wonderful human being. She is a founder and creator of Assertive Voices. She is a writer and also a poet. We have much to discuss on the area of her specialism today, which is selective mutism. And it's an honour, privilege and pleasure to welcome to our podcast episode this morning, Dr. Antje Bothin. Dr. Antje, you're very welcome to In the Spotlight this morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great, and thank you for honouring me with your time today. I know you're a very busy individual, and I know and understand a little bit about the work that you do and the support that you give to so many people around the country and around the world today. For those who don't know you, and I'm going to do a little shout out to Rudy and Albert of the Founders Network, who brought us together some nearly 2 months ago now, right, Antje?
Yeah.
Um, and the Founders Network, the fastest online global network, increasing week on week in terms of new members. And I really want to thank Albert and Rudy for bringing us together. So it was through that network, it was through meeting you, I began to understand something of your own work and something of what you do. But for those who don't know you, Antje, please tell our listeners this morning, introduce yourself and tell them who you are.
Yeah, I'm the founder of Assertive Voices. We help people find their voice, shine their light, and unlock their full potential, particularly people with selective mutism, as you said. And we run support groups for adults, and we have workshops for organizations where we give people simple practical strategies how they can support someone. So, for example, if someone has a student or a member of staff who struggles with speaking in certain situations, that's where we can help. I'm also the author of the books you can see behind me. So one is Quiet, a poem about selective mutism, which is just a poem I wrote for Selective Mutism Awareness Month a couple of years ago. And that's just a poem. It's also available in German and you can get it from Amazon. And the other book is called Annika and the Treasure of Iceland, which is a treasure hunt about around Iceland with a character, a young adult who struggles with speaking in certain situations. And I show the challenges she faces and how she overcomes her anxiety. So,
Magic. Well, you have been so busy, and and for those who don't understand what selective mutism is, Angie,
yeah.
and I must admit I know very little about it. So as somebody who wants to learn more, can you tell me a little bit about the condition of selective mutism, how it emerges, some of the symptoms and how many people does it affect? So if you can
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit more on what selective mutism is, I'd be very grateful on that.
Yeah, so selective mutism is an anxiety disorder. It usually starts in early childhood. And what you notice, particularly as a parent, is you have a child that is very different in certain situations in terms of how they behave and how they talk or if they talk. So the child would not speak at school or at nursery, but they can speak normally at home with parents or close family. And you would see this difference in behavior.
Yeah.
That's the most common sign. But if there's no support, because people usually think it's just shyness or something, so then you have a teenager or an adult who still struggles, and then it's more related to social anxiety, maybe like problems with speaking up in groups, with making yourself heard, giving presentations, things like that. So you will find that this person can't talk in certain situations, but in others they can. And it can also affect other things like eating in front of others or maybe even writing when someone is watching. So it's not necessarily only talking, but talking is probably the main thing you notice. And there are people who don't talk at all in these specific situations when this happens. It's like a freeze response,
Mm.
a reaction to anxiety. So you have fight or flight. For example, when you see the tiger, you run away or you fight it. But in this case, it's like freeze. You kind of play dead, and this is like a reaction to protect yourself in that moment, to kind of like, and that immobilizes the person, and they can't speak in that situation, or they might not even be able to move or do anything
Wow.
that requires them to be relaxed or something like that. It affects 1 in 140 children. So that's like one in every primary school, and I think 1 in 2,500 or so adults. But that's an underestimate because cases are not really very well known. There might be people who don't know that they might suffer from that. So it's really something people misunderstand, and they think the person does not want to talk. But it's never the case. It's really an inability in that moment. It's not a conscious choice not to speak or something like that. So that's really problematic when people don't understand what's going on. And it's also hard to talk about it, kind of when you can't talk. So
Yeah,
if you think of that, and it can be embarrassing.
it is. It is a really complex condition, isn't it? And
Yeah,
there's so many other elements which are affected by the condition, including writing, including other forms of communication, as well
yeah,
as as well as eating and
yeah.
as well. I have no idea. Um, is the condition well known in the UK, Antje, or has there still an awful lot of work to be done to bring awareness to the condition in the UK? What's your own experience?
I would say it needs more experience. It's better known now than it was a couple of years ago,
Mm,
probably. So I say in the 80s, it wasn't really known that much, but now there's really some support for young children, like that there are specialized speech and language therapists or psychologists who work with schools and parents, but it's not that it is very commonly known or that the NHS would kind of support it everywhere. So
yeah.
there's different possibilities depending on where you are in the UK, what is available to you, and so it's really something that could use more awareness as such.
So, am I clear in saying then, from what you're saying to me, that it is classed as an anxiety disorder and not
Mm,
essentially a mental health condition? But I presume if somebody remained undiagnosed from the condition, that it could create further mental health issues
yeah,
down the road,
yeah,
including,
it could.
I presume, depression, uh,
Yeah,
you know, general anxiety disorder, as well as, other mental health conditions. Has that been your experience in the treatment of children that and adults that you've worked with?
Yeah, I know a lot of people who struggle with this. There are Facebook groups for affected adults, for example, or groups where parents can talk about their experience. And I see a lot that such things happen. There are also relations to other things like social anxiety or maybe even autism. So you have to see what a person has, or if a person has both, or other things, different conditions. So, and there's also something called high profile SM and low profile SM. So basically, high profile SM is like if this person doesn't talk at all in situations when that happens, and low profile SM is just when they are able to respond minimally, maybe with one word or just I don't know or something, because they know they have to react somehow. Otherwise, that's more trouble or more anxiety. And but it's not like they speak in a normal way or they would initiate something or elaborate on things. And this low profile SM is more what you see in adults when they have not overcome it, and that is still struggle, but you kind of don't really notice it that much because they do talk in a way, but not freely or spontaneously.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose you're one of the questions I'm fascinated to ask you, Antje, is how did you get into selective mutism? How how did it was it something you've always been interested in? Was it a subject you've always had a keen interest in researching? And obviously I know you completed your PhD on that subject, and how did you come to it?
No,
How
no, the selective mutism is more based on my lived experience. So I think that's what I had as a child, and I
okay.
educated myself about it because I wanted to help myself, and how I got into it. And then I wanted to help others. But my background is I've got a degree in business engineering, an MSc in information and media technology, and my PhD is in information studies. I've also done, as you said, work as a writer and also as a translator.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Germany. I live in Scotland now, but I've worked with German translations and German tutoring a bit. So I wanted to work in that area too before I came to this because it's just something that's close to my heart.
Fantastic. I have to ask, how did you end up in Scotland from Germany? Did you marry a Scottish guy, or how did you manage to end up in Scotland?
Yeah. No, I studied in Scotland 20 years ago. It was
Oh,
an exchange program when I studied in Germany, but I wanted to come here. I
mm,
wanted to be in an English-speaking environment, and I liked it here.
mm,
And as I said, apart from that stay in Sheffield where I did my PhD, I came back to Scotland. And
fan, fantastic, fantastic, and and I suppose in seeking awareness about it and helping people to understand more about selective mutism. Who do you work with at the moment? Is it schools? Is it colleges? Is it adults? Is it the mixture? Is it organizations? How do people find out about selective mutism? Because I presume, even some aspects of the NHS won't know that much about it. I presume
mhm,
it's very specialist, right? It's very
mhm,
specialist.
mhm. Yeah, as I said, there are um, special places, websites, as an association who works with this specifically. That's Smira in the UK, for example. And we were Assertive Voices, we created an online course that everyone can work through if they want to. That's available on Udemy. That's one thing. So that's basically a workshop that I can also run personally or online. And I put it together in an online course where people can work through it on at their own pace. And at the moment, we're working to create a course for affected adults. So that will come out at some point.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Some great work. In terms of the condition itself, uh, how does somebody go undergo an assessment? Do they have to be referred to a GP or a psychiatrist or a psychologist within the service, or how can it be formally diagnosed as selective mutism if somebody has some of the symptoms that you had already described?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say start with the GP and then maybe get referred to a specialist, like I said, a speech and language therapist in the UK. But it's mainly for children. I'm not sure. It's much more difficult to diagnose an adult, and they would possibly be more likely to get a social anxiety diagnosis or something like that.
Mm,
But I know a few specialists, for example, Maggie Johnson, who wrote a book called The Selective Mutism Resource Manual, together with Alison Vinchens, and she did training for organizations as a specialized speech and language therapist. And I know she diagnosed a few people. So I think you really have to find someone who knows what they're doing and who specializes in this, and then see if you can get somewhere.
yeah.
Then on the other hand, it might not be necessary to have an official diagnosis. So you have to think about this. Why do you need it? What would it cost? And things like that.
Absolutely. And I presume part of your work then is around raising levels of awareness around selective
Yeah, yeah,
mutism and the condition with those organizations, including GPs and psychiatrists and psychologists who may, for various reasons, not know that much about the condition. And again, because it's specialist, it requires would you say, a specialist touch in terms of in terms of approach?
yeah. It's not that every professional has heard of that, and if it's not done in a proper way, things can go very wrong, unfortunately. So you really have to know the specific things that you would do to help someone with this. So there are specific strategies, or I don't know how to say, what you can do. And that's also something that applies to the general public or anyone who deals with an affected person. So they can learn simple things, what they can do,
Mm.
and things that they better shouldn't do that might make things worse. So, for example, you don't want to ask the person, why don't you talk, or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's they don't have an answer at that point, so and it
Mm.
might be embarrassing, but people might do it when they wonder that person doesn't talk. That's strange, so when they just don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very important that you don't put the individual under any degree of additional stress or pressure or anxiety to
Yeah,
almost
yeah, and
you
yeah,
know put pressure on them to self-diagnose themselves, whereas like you say they may not know.
you don't put pressure on them to speak,
Yeah,
so you don't say just say something. Or so that's also not what you do. You just give them space, and you give them time and space to be ready to talk and to feel relaxed, and you kind of make that a nice environment. So
yeah,
that's just something.
yeah. And I suppose that relates particularly to your own experience, and thank you for sharing the fact that you yourself, you know, suffered with the condition in your own childhood. And how did you get the help, Angie? And you know, and you're speaking, you're talking, you're communicating with me today so eloquently, so wonderfully. And you know, how was your journey in terms of coming to terms with the condition yourself? Was it a tricky one? Was it difficult? Did you get the support that you required? Was there confusion? Were your parents confused? You know, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I think it was very difficult when I was a child
Yeah,
at school. I got bullied a lot and there was no support at all. So teachers just wanted you to talk, and the other children kind of didn't understand it, didn't like you, and the parents also didn't know what's going on and what to do. So it was more like, why don't you just speak? And, like
yeah,
you are you're doing that intentionally. And then when I was like 20 something, I found it in a book. That's what this is called. That must be it. So one little sentence. And then I started learning more about it. And then I went to university and I was kind of forced to give presentations. And then just kind of developed that I kind of opened up more and more. And at some point, I met other people who are affected and learned that they had overcome it, which is a great motivator to see what you can do. And that is possible, and that is a real thing and not just shyness or you are not wanting to or whatever people told me when they didn't understand it. And then I kind of learned different ways what I can do, and I tried to do this. So mainly like face the anxiety in small steps. Like you said yourself, a goal, what you want to do,
yeah,
a speaking goal, and then you think how could I make that easier?
yeah,
And what could I start with? Where am I right now? What would be possible to do? And then you do it and practice that, and somehow very slowly and gradually it happens that you notice you're suddenly doing it. So that's what I would say about this.
Wow, wow. What a story, Antje. What a story of, uh, I suppose, real difficulty that you found yourself in. That you really found yourself in a world where people didn't understand you at all.
Mm-hmm,
And you almost, you almost, well, you did actually, you know,
mm-hmm,
through your own
mm-hmm,
perseverance and your resilience, that I can only imagine at times was extremely difficult and extremely isolating and extremely painful for you
mm-hmm,
to come through that
mm-hmm.
and to come out the other side of that, to be here today in presence with me, and speaking so eloquently and fluently and wonderfully in terms of describing your own life story is nothing short of, I'm going to say it, miraculous. You
Thank
know,
you.
and it must have taken a degree of effort and work to get you to where you will now find yourself. Would that be true to say that?
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful,
It's
Wo-
it's
wonderful.
hard to explain.
It is.
So
Was your big breakthrough not only in seeing that one liner on that book that absolutely that fully um, made you understand what you had, but also did meeting other people really help and support and in coming to an understanding of that, you weren't alone, you didn't feel isolated, and more people were suffering from this condition.
yeah, I think um, when you have it as a child, you think you're the only one, and you're the only one who's strange or different, and you think tomorrow I'm gonna talk, and then it doesn't happen, and it's really stressful that you feel no control over yourself at this point. But I think knowing that others are affected too, and when I'm now running a peer support group, we share similar experiences about what happened in the past or what we can do or anything, and we just do talking exercises, play games, do creative writing, whatever. So it's really a different feeling to know that there are others. But people who don't experience it, well, some people might think it's a silent treatment or something, so there are these misunderstandings again. So that's why it needs more awareness. So people don't seem to know that there is a thing that someone can't talk sometimes only, you
Yeah,
see,
and
and they
it's
can talk. So you know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely, and it's not just deliberate, but there are reasons why
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
has
yeah,
decided to be selectively mute.
yeah. Not decided. It just happened,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. Is it
uh,
is it related to trauma, Antje?
Not necessarily, but
No.
maybe it could be. But it's more like maybe this child had some experiences related to talking, that something very small or even many things kind of gave them the idea talking is not safe or something. That could be, but it could also be like inherited the anxiety in the family in some way, or it could be just the environment, how someone grew up. It's really a thing of complex factors that could be, and it might be different for every individual what they have in their circumstances.
My final question to you today, and to is this, that there may be people listening to this episode today. There may be parents listening to this episode today who may have a child going through difficulties of this nature at the moment. What advice or guidance would you give them? What would be the first steps they would need to take in order to get help or support for their child?
Yeah, I would say find out what's going on, maybe consult a doctor or someone, and watch it, and do something early as possible.
Mm.
So don't think that will go out of it, and so really take it seriously. And there's things that can be done, and if it's done with a young child, then there is no problem at all. So it really gets harder when the child is older and the thing is more ingrained then, and they see themselves as the person who doesn't talk and things like that.
Incredible, incredible. And if people want to know more, where can they find you? Where can they find the Assertive Voices? Where you've mentioned some links already in terms of your works that you have created. The
Mhm.
both of those, I presume, are available on Amazon
Yeah,
and other reasonable booksellers, I presume.
yeah,
Where can people find you, Antje?
yeah. We've got a website, assertivevoices.com. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Um, yeah, so
Wonderful,
just get in
wonderful.
touch.
Absolutely. And for those listening today, all those links will be available in terms of the show notes following this episode. Antje Bothin, thank you for your share this morning. Thank you for your, I suppose, your conversation. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your resilience. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your commitment to the wonderful subject which you've committed yourself to, and the work that you do in helping and supporting so many across the country and across the world who, sadly, have will have this condition, as you said already. 1 in 140 children on average. And
Mm,
again, the numbers are tentative because of diagnosis, and 1 in 2,500 adults will suffer from selective mutism. So, in a world of just over 7 billion people, that's a lot of people, right? That's a lot of
yeah,
people
yeah.
across the world. Antje, it's been wonderful to have you on today. It's been wonderful that you've honoured my space today in the spotlight to share your story, your wonderful story, to share the amazing work that you do. And I wish you well in terms of the work that you do. I wish you well in terms of the energy that you bring to the subject, and I wish you well in terms of being able to, hopefully, as a result of this episode, even reach more people in terms of the work that you do, and end up helping more people as a result. So thank you, Antje, for your time this morning, and it's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you.